Good evening and welcome to Friday Night Movie Night. I'm your host, John Roberts, and in the next few weeks and months and years, we hope, we're going to be talking about different motion pictures that you might want to see for your Friday night movie night or whenever you get together with your friends for movie night, and give you a few alternatives of things that are not really talked about too much. We'll be looking at films like offbeat cult films, the French, Italian, and German New Wave of the 60s and 70s, our own American New Wave from the late 60s, and a few oddball things along the way, cheap horror films, which we always love. If you can see the flying saucer dangling on wires or the monster suit bag at the crotch, that's the kind of stuff we'll be talking about. But first we're going to go with a rather obscure film, one that I think has been neglected throughout history wrongfully, is 1969's The Magic Christian, starring Peter Sellers and Ringo Starr, and an all-star cast, which we'll talk about later. The film was directed by a television director named Joe McGrath, who got his start directing a segment out of Casino Royale, and then later got his own feature films like 30 is a Dangerous Year, Cynthia with Dudley Moore, and The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom with Shirley MacLaine, which we'll also be talking about a little bit later. But The Magic Christian is his third feature film, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a very funny film, very influenced by Sellers' own Goon Show that he did with Spike Milligan and Harry Seacombe, as well as obvious references to Monty Python, with two of the guest stars being Graham Chapman and John Cleese, who also distribute some interesting additional material along the way. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you a brief clip of one of the first things that, when I saw The Magic Christian the first time, I was enjoying the dialogue and some of the smart quips that you would expect from the Goon shows, and there were a few sight gags. But this clip that we're setting up for you now is essentially Guy Grant, the Peter Sellers character, is the richest man in the world. He's just adopted Ringo Starr, and together they're going around to find out if everybody has their price. So he bribes a famous prince up in Scotland to go on a pheasant hunt, and well, I'll let the clip talk about it. So here it is. This is the hunting segment from The Magic Christian.
I don't mind missing one or two pheasants, provided I can occasionally get a quick kill.
Aye, quick kill, that's the name of the game.
Snatch the little beggars quickly, eh?
Oh, yes.
Look, the dogs are on point, Guy.
Yes, so they are, Lionel, so they are. Still in all, I don't fancy relying entirely on dogs, do you?
Hey, what?
Hit the deck!
Now for a good, clean kill.
Blast! Missed. Over to you, Red Leader 1. Yes, good shooting, Red Leader 1. A direct hit.
Good God.
Nothing like a good, clean kill. Eh, Henry?
Your bird, Sagi. It is the bestest shooting I've seen in 30 years of service.
Well, now wasn't that a kick in the head? Now, when I first saw this film, I enjoyed what I was seeing, the banter and everything, like I mentioned, but I didn't really realize what kind of sight gag-ridden comedy this thing was going to be. So when this scene came on, I mean, I was laughing my ass off in the theater. I was afraid I was going to get hauled out. It was that bad. But what I started seeing in The Magic Christian was that, since I was familiar with the novel by Terry Southern, who also co-wrote the screenplay with Joe McGrath, is that he stuck really close to his book, which I had already read. So I understood that everything that's happening in the background, on the TV screens, weird stuff happening everywhere that you see in this film is probably Guy Grand screwing around with something and paying somebody off to do something stupid. Now there's stuff like salesmen with signs on their backs walking down the street, and it says, "You're telling me, God?" and stuff like that, or "What's up?" And it's like, what the hell does that mean? Well, it means that Guy Grand is screwing around with everybody. And that's what this film is about. And really, when you think about it, this is kind of like the first punking film, where Grand is willing to pay whatever it takes to get people to screw around with some sacred cows. Now, since they were filming this in England, some of the sacred cows that they were brandishing around was Sotheby's, the auction there, Crufts Dog Show. They're making fun of a gourmet restaurant, among other things. Now, critics at the time thought that, well, they're just poking fun at, and didn't even think about the main part of the film, which Sellers mentioned all along was supposed to be an anti-establishment film, or kind of like sticking one to the Burks, as he liked to call it. So this is like a very anti-establishment film, and that's what makes it fun. Whew. Now in our next clip, we're going to be showing what he does best, bribing the next thing that's going to happen in the film. This time he goes to the Oxford boat racing crew to fix the Oxford-Cambridge boat race that's been an ungodly tradition in England for years. So this will give you an idea of some of the sacred cows they slaughter, and this part, which we like to call the bribe.
Right, break it up, chaps. Will you gather round? I'd like to introduce Sir Guy Grand and his son, Youngman Grand. Hello, sir.
How do you do?
Sir Guy's come down to put a very interesting proposition to us. Sir Guy.
Lads, we had a little idea concerning the race. Yes. An endeavor, you might say, to make it somewhat more interesting this year.
Cambridge are making their way to the starting position, but there's still no sign of Oxford.
We are here, in fact, to make you a very interesting offer of money.
I think they're trying to bribe us.
They are.
Well, Oxford still haven't put in an appearance. And the crowd's getting just a bit restive. It's really most extraordinary. I'm quite sure the umpire's got something to say about this.
Oxford, can you hear me?
You've actually come here to offer us money to interfere with the race.
Yes, that's right.
I think you ought to leave. You have the wrong man. No. But you must leave immediately. You should realize, sir, that Oxford men cannot be bought.
Here.
But you see, we thought that if the sum was large enough, as large as that.
Well, of course, you recognize Graham Chapman there, who was just getting started with Monty Python, along with John Cleese, and of course the rest of the Python guys who were working on a TV show at the time called At Last, the 1948 Show, which is finally available on DVD through Acorn. It's a 1967 show. And Cleese and Chapman had worked together before on this, along with Marty Feldman. And they, in one of the episodes, they recreate the, or actually, it's the first Four Yorksmen film, or a routine rather, that they came up with that Python later just as one of their best routines. But they met together in The Magic Christian because McGrath had already used Cleese in the Bliss of Mrs. Blossom, which we'll once again show a little later. But with that fun clip, we're going to go to our third clip, which will give one of the guest stars, a certain Mr. Leonard Fry, who at the time in England was in the middle of the mega success of The Boys in the Band, Mark Crowley's ascetic play about a gay birthday party that goes totally berserk. So what we're going to show here is a clip where Leonard Fry is the ship's doctor, Dr. Lawrence Fagot. So you'll kind of get an idea that he's definitely channeling his Harold character from Boys in the Band. And in this clip, watch Sellers and Ringo in the background, kind of like pretending that they're not noticing. Lots of fun. So here it is, the doctor.
Sir. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the ship's physician, Lawrence Fagot.
Doctor, what in the name of God's going on here?
Now, Sir Herb, what's all this? Fair weather sailor, cross and irritable the moment things don't exactly suit you.
Shoot me! There are odd things going on that need an explanation.
Explanation? Why don't we have a little tete-a-tete? Perhaps you could tell me about your childhood, your early childhood.
I don't need any of that psychological chapter. If you could please just give me some tranquilizers.
Escape into drugs? Mask your fears in an artificial fog? Oh, surely you can't be serious.
Oh, well, give me some decent English aspirin.
Here, Sir Herb, try this. It's just what the doctor ordered.
What is it?
It's cannabis, Sir Herb. It'll tighten your wig.
Tighten me wig? Why? It's damnable wog hemp.
Who do you think you're kidding? I saw you try to ditch that stuff. Okay, buddy. This is a bust. Let's move.
But I was in bed reading. Sit there.
This damnable wog hemp is burning a hole in the ship's carpet, son.
We don't want that, do we, Dad?
No, we don't.
Let's really go and listen to the story.
Oh, good idea.
Well, of course, it was only natural for Guy and Youngman to pick up on what the doctor was throwing down. Besides being an anti-establishment film, clearly The Magic Christian is a total Lodo film, or what we used to call head films back in the 60s. And it's quite appropriate. It does play with your head an awful lot. Like I mentioned before, stuff in the background. If you see something on a TV screen that looks weird, supposedly Guy does that. It's very faithful to Southern's novel, and I'm glad he got to contribute to the screenplay. There's also additional material by Sellers, who is just improvising all over the place. So you'll have fun with that. And besides Leonard Fry there and Richard Attenborough, who we showed earlier, there are other guest stars including Roman Polanski, Raquel Welch, Lawrence Harvey, Wilfred Hyde-White, and a plethora of British actors and actresses. Isabel Jean, who happened to work with Sellers as far back as 1964 for Heavens Above. So he had a cast that was comfortable to him, plus his two old buddies, David Lodge and Graham Stark. Graham Stark goes all the way back to Sellers' first film in 1951. So he always had his buddies together. He was comfortable with them. He pretty much put up the money for this film, and it didn't really do as good as it should have, but don't let that bother you, because it has, to my mind, strong cult possibilities, and all it's going to take is people who love Monty Python and the Goons to see this film. It's like a natural extension of that type of humor. So check it out. Once again, directed by Joe McGrath, who did a bunch of stuff for television. As we mentioned before, did several of the Beatles videos from like 1965, Day Tripper, We Can Work It Out, all filmed at Twickenham Studios. So Sellers knew McGrath, so did Ringo from those. So it was the right crew getting together at the right time. And I think it's one of McGrath's best films. It's certainly the one I enjoy the most. And right now, we're going to show you a clip from the film before The Magic Christian, from The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom, with Shirley MacLaine, Richard Attenborough once again, and John Booth. This is a story about a bored American housewife who's married to a British man who runs a brassiere manufacturing company and has no time for her, so she inadvertently finds a lover, and not only finds him, she puts him up in her attic, so when the husband's away she can play. So this is a clip of him essentially moving some stuff in while Attenborough and MacLaine are doing what they do best, making art. So here it is, a clip from The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom. This is the first of what we call the Why the Hell Isn't This on Blu-ray or DVD. Oh, Bill, hand me that. Thank you. The only way that this film is available is on, this is a Paramount Laser disc. This goes back a ways. It's probably from like about 1986. It hasn't been put out on video. It's not on DVD or Blu-ray. Now, Olive Films, which distributes The Magic Christian and also did a really nice job of remastering it and getting a fine print should go into Paramount's vaults and get the Bliss of Mrs. Blossom. It's a fun film, and to my mind, they work really well together because McGrath had pretty much the same crew. Jeffrey Unsworth was the cinematographer on Bliss and Magic Christian, and several of his other technical people, and he was filming at Twickenham, so hey, that's where the comfort lies, in familiarity. So this is a brief clip from the Bliss of Mrs. Blossom.
Love it, Robert.
Now think slowly and answer carefully.
This was mailed from here 3 days ago.
You don't recall anything of the sender?
Only that she was female. That's all. I think.
Was she alone when she posted it?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Excuse me. Thank you very much.
Oh, Bernemondsey, I used to live there.
Could you describe this woman?
About 60, grey hair, well-dressed, quite an expensive fur. Her name is Mrs. Emily Briggs.
Not that woman, the one that posted the parcel.
Brown hair?
Yes.
Blue eyes?
Yes.
Youngish?
Yes.
I don't know.
I love these eyewitness accounts.
Yes. Yes, I think I would. Definitely. Very pretty she was. Very pretty.
Not very much.
George, you've got the pattern of the grill on the counter on your basin. I think.
Yeah, we're all freaks here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little clip. Of course, you recognize John Cleese as the befuddled postman who didn't know what the hell was going on. And that was Freddie Jones as the inspector. And you might remember him later. He was in The Elephant Man, David Lynch's The Elephant Man. So Freddie Jones, not really a big, well-known name here, but he sure has cult status. And so should the Bliss of Mrs. Blossom, which I like to say, Olive Films, you have the Paramount archives to go through, do it by all means, because it'll be a lot of fun. Remember, that's the Bliss of Mrs. Blossom. I'm going to show it to you guys once again. The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom, so you know what you're looking for. Olive Films, which has been releasing a lot of great cult films from the 50s on up through the 60s and 70s. Is a lot of fun. They've been putting together some good stuff. I have a lot of Olive Films, and the Magic Christian is one of them. The remastering job on it is excellent. They found a different print than what was on the Republic DVD and Laserdisc, and they letterboxed it as well. So this is the first time that the Magic Christian has been released in its proper format. The sound is better. It's not quite as, it's not muddy like the Republic version, and it's just all around a better thing. So if you're a fan of British comedy, and particularly the oddball stuff like Python fans, this is really a must-have, because besides the two Pythons, there's a lot of stuff going on in this. So until next time, this is John Roberts. Just keep us in mind. and watch us on occasion. We'll be in the future recommending a bunch of films from directors like Robert Altman, Stanley Kubrick, Michelangelo Antonioni, Jirish Yigis, people like that. Of course, you'll have to look that one up. So until next time, this is Friday Night Movie Night saying, watch different movies. Don't watch the crap that's on television. Television will rot your soul. Take care.